to the Plan Podcast. Michigan's elite political podcast is about to begin, live from the birthplace of the Republican Party. Let's gather under the oaks like our forefathers did. Now more than ever, it's time to stick to the plan.
I am just saying, if I am here to work on fixing Michigan, if I don't win, I can't vote for those other people that are running.
There we go. We're on. Yeah.
Kevin, we had to start with that.
Well, that's felt right.
Okay. Introduce me like you normally do. But...
Yeah. Well, hey guys, welcome to Stick to the Plan Podcast. I'm Kevin. I'm here as always with Russ. How you doing today, Russ?
I'm doing pretty good, Kevin. You were part of my weekend this weekend.
Saturday.
Went over to Monroe to their Charlie Kirk Gala. I like those for the first hour.
Yeah, it was fun for the first hour.
And then I'm ready to go home.
Yeah, I was ready.
Speakers were good, but
yeah.
We're going to, before I introduce our guest, I'm going to set the table a little bit.
You didn't do our traditional. It's
Monday already, but guess what? And that's why I'm setting the table. I had a guest lined up early in last week.
Okay.
Now, if something wouldn't have happened, I probably would have figured it out yesterday. Somebody goofy. But we got a good, serious guest today. That's Matt Wilk. And Matt, hold tight here. Let me set the table here. What happened? So we had our regular Monday podcast last week with the 10X Votes guy.
Yep.
Okay. And Drew, right? Yeah. And that was a good show. And immediately after I left the show, I'm sending a whole bunch of videos where the head person, the founder, the creator of Axe My Tax, made some videos, included me in the videos, my friend Randy Guppy, the Michigan GOP Vice Chair, Chris Long. And this is after, back in August, you and I, Kevin, on this show, we were vocal about the dangers of Axe My Tax.
Yeah. Be
careful what you ask for.
Absolutely.
And our guest, Matt, had talked about on another podcast, did the breakdown of the numbers of the shortfall, the billions of dollars of shortfall that local communities are going to have to deal with. And so on social media and things like that, I was quite critical. And I was asked by someone I like and highly respect, Russ, can you come up off this a little bit for a while? Don't discourage the circulators. Those potentially could be volunteers for us, right?
Right.
And I said, I can do that as long as the petition drive doesn't go into the first of the year and interfere with the 2026 elections.
Right.
And this person says, Russ, I'll insert myself when and if that happens. So I was relatively quiet. I made a couple of comments on somebody else's social media pages. Wasn't hers, wasn't the Axe My Tax page.
Right.
About, I hope they don't go into the first of the year, right? Well, she went off crazy in defense of Axe My Tax. That's her job. That's what she does.
Right.
And to the point to where I almost couldn't ignore it. And I called you on the phone and I said, Kevin, let's do a couple weeks series on the dangers of Axe My Tax. This isn't an attack on Carla or even really a run today's shows won't even be at her attempt to run for governor. Today, I think we'll focus, although this show goes into the weeds, on the how Axe My Tax would affect local communities. And there we go. Not a lot of people are going to worry about the schools. Okay, that's fine. I know Matt's probably got an opinion on that. I am a trustee on a township board, and I know how our budget works, and it wouldn't look good.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at with today's show. Like I said, it could go anywhere, and let's do it right now. Let's welcome Matt Wilk to the show. How are you, Matt?
I'm doing great, guys. Doing great.
Get him on there. Hold on. Sorry.
Kevin's trying to do his producing thing here. Matt, you hold several titles. I don't know what we should call you today other than just Matt Wilk.
It's so many. I run my local Republican club called the Northville Republicans Club. Done that for about a decade now. I sit on state committee, on the policy committee. I also run a 501c4 called Get Kids Back to School. So wear a lot of hats. That's what I'll call my not paying work. So try to do as much as I can. It's important that we get the state and especially our schools in the right direction. That's for sure.
And I thank you for reminding me that you're on state committee. I knew a lot of those, and I know what a lot of people know you from was your efforts in reforming school boards, finding good candidates to represent our public schools, which is a challenge with some positive results over the years. Even here in Jackson, I don't care where you're at. So that's when I first became familiar with you. And I think a lot of people did. So thank you for the time that you've put into that over several years now.
It's been a while. I said I was elected twice. I was on my school board for 8.5 years. And to the purpose of this topic, I was my school board treasurer for about 6 of them. So I'm really familiar with how sort of school finance works.
Sure.
And when I saw this particular plan, I said, "Oh boy, this just doesn't work for a lot of reasons." And ultimately, we can get into what those are.
So, Matt, I'm one of those Republicans or many citizens where I can't tell you the last time I voted yes on a millage request. And that's where it starts. We need to get our handle on the constant request for millages, whether it's schools or municipalities, wherever it is. And truthfully, there's been a couple that's come our way here in Jackson County that if we weren't so top heavy with millages, that I would have probably considered voting in favor of those particular millages. Our public safety, we had a jail millage this last year. These are critical things. Public safety in my community that we pay $1 million a year for, it's necessary. There are police, there are fire, the whole thing. But we're so top heavy with millages. So I want to explain to people that, yes, property tax is brutal. Property tax is a problem in Michigan, and we do need to get our arms around it. And there's candidates out there that are discussing ways to do that. And I have my own ideas. And I would love the elimination of property tax if we could do it in a more careful manner, is where we're at here. I get targeted a lot. Well, Russ, you're all in favor of property tax. No, I'm not. Not at all. But I do think as a township official, just like you, former treasurer on your school board, this is critical. And before I shut up for a second, I often thought in the beginning, the first time around on Axe My Tax, Kevin and I both were somewhat in favor of it. Sounded good on the surface. Me as a county chair of Jackson GOP, you got all kinds of stuff going on over there today, Kevin.
No one knows that until you bring it up.
I don't watch that screen a whole lot anyways.
Yeah, well.
But I lost track. The phone was ringing and everything, man. On Stick to Plan podcast.
Well, that's why we put it on vibrate.
That's what I was supposed to do. The first time around, as a GOP chair, I thought, I'm uncomfortable when you come at me with a citizens initiative that isn't backed by a whole gob of money. I've said this on the show a lot of times. Unlock Michigan had a ton of money. The timing was right. We're under the lockdowns. current one happening right now, citizens only vote. Okay. I'm not saying I like the fact that it takes a lot of money to get a citizens initiative over the finish line. It just does. So when you waste a lot of volunteers' times on something that isn't going to make it because it's lack of funding, that was my problem the first time. And then to make where things matter, I had active Republican volunteers and some of them even executive committee members who we didn't see at all through the 2024 election. We had Trump campaign in our headquarters. They didn't knock a door. They didn't do anything. They were consumed with Axe My Tax. And so the second time around, I was flat out, no, you can't do this again. Don't do it again. And then what really got me going is when you jumped on Bigger Truth Media, Matt, and talked about the numbers. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And you can go off from there on with that.
Sure. I mean, look, there's 3 real reasons why this is not a good idea. Okay. And they come down to math, control, and strategy. Okay. So let's start with the last one because it's the one you most recently referenced. Strategically, this has never been successful anywhere. There's been discussion by, in Florida by DeSantis and in maybe a couple places like Nebraska or Kansas. And what they are running into is on the unfortunate situation of that there's no way, it sounds great, but there's no way to make it work fiscally. We'll get to that in a second, but let's just talk on a strategic battle. Russ, when I was at the RNC, I had the opportunity as part of our delegation to hear from the OG of tax reform. And the guy's name is Grover Norquist. Grover Norquist was basically the inventor of the 1986 tax reform. He convinced Congress to reduce marginal tax rates from things in the 70s and 80s down to where they are today. And what he does right now is he goes state by state, and I think he's done it in about 15 or 16 states, and he passes initiatives to either lower or eliminate state income tax. And what they found was a couple of things. One is you can do it in a way that isn't financially deadly, where you don't pass it and then immediately you're cutting branches of government. And the other thing is that it's not a purely partisan issue. Okay, think about where in the United States we have no income tax, right? Where we have no income tax. Well, Texas, sure. Florida, gotcha. Washington, Tennessee, Washington. Washington's a blue state. Why does Washington have no income tax? Washington has no income tax because why? They wanted to keep Boeing and Amazon and Microsoft around. So they have no income tax. Nevada, no income tax. Purple state, run by Democrats for a long time. Why? They like the businesses. Okay? It's something that can be done. And when you draw, as to your point, when you take we all live in a world of finite resources. I got X number of hours in the day, right? I can work on this or I can work on that. And I can work on X my tax, or I can work on something that actually might pass and might work. The people should understand the hurdle you must get over to get a citizens initiative on the ballot in Michigan is very high. Okay? Give or take, we need the same number of signatures for an initiative, for example, as California. California has roughly 5 times the number of people that we do, 5.5 times, give or take. Okay? So if we need 600,000 signatures, we would need 120,000 signatures. Okay? It's a big difference. Okay? Yeah. So they can do them very easily. For us, it's very complicated. And when you do, you take up, volunteer resources. Would they rather be working on a campaign or would they rather be collecting ballot initiatives? So
not just any campaign. You can latch a hold of a candidate to where reform or severe reduction in any tax and help that person get elected, because that's the best avenue to go. Like I said, resources, and you brought up a good point. Look at us compared to California. That means they have a ton of more people that they can collect signatures from and speak to with that requires basically almost the same amount of signatures. Is that what you said?
That is correct. That is 100% correct. It is 5 times as easy to do it in California
Sure.
as it
That's
is.
why they have a lot of ballot initiatives on their ballots.
That's right. And
Right.
interestingly, one of the ones they have is very similar to what we have in Michigan. Most people, we take for granted what we have in Michigan. Michigan has something called Proposal A. It was passed in 1994, and it caps the rate of property tax increases at the greater of, I think it's inflation or lesser of inflation or 5%. Okay, for most years, it's been 2%. All right. And you cannot go increase taxes, the rate, without the approval of voters.
Right.
Those things are in place. I have 2 brothers coming in for Thanksgiving. They both live in Cook County, Illinois. Those rules do not exist there. They wake up one day and they get a tax bill. And the tax bill says, your new rate is X and your new tax bill is Y. And you don't have any control over it. You have ostensibly control over the politicians that are passing it, but not in Cook County you don't. Just like I don't in Wayne County, right? So we have some protections in place already, but let's take a step back and let's just go to the basic math of it. Because when I start with the math, people go, oh, and then we talk about the strategic things, implication, and we talk about control. Okay, so let's talk about math. And it's good because we have, as you know, the state passed their budget in October. Okay, so we can get a handle on what would happen under this proposal. So under this proposal, what they ask to do is we're going to get rid of all property taxes, and we're going to increase the revenue sharing from the state level to the local level, an amount equal to 10% basically of income, and then the combination of excise and other taxes. Okay, so we're getting rid of property taxes and we're increasing revenue share by another 10%. Okay, all right. So how much was collected in property taxes last year? The answer is give or take about $18 billion, between $17 and $18 billion. Okay?
Okay.
So that's the number that we're getting rid of. And one thing people should understand is the vast majority of that, in my bill, it's like 90%. You can check your own tax bill and see. There's
Sure.
only one tax that goes to the state. That's the state education tax. That's 6 mils. So if you're like me, you're paying 55 mils, whatever. It's about 10%, it's over 10, 15%, something like that. Okay. So most of that money stays local in the first place. All right. But it's a total of 18 billion dollars. Okay. So we're going to get rid of that. All right. And what we're going to replace it with is this 10% revenue sharing. Okay. Gotcha. 10% of what? Now, what unfortunately, and I want to preface this by saying this. I think that the volunteers for Axe My Tax are doing a great job.
They are.
They are trying very hard. They are working hard. They're going to places. They're collecting signatures. They're doing true grassroots politics. The only problem is math doesn't work.
They're selling something that the math doesn't work. And they're selling something that they can't answer the questions on when a lot of questions are brought up to them, especially the volunteers, because you can't even get a lot of the questions answered from the creator of Axe My Tax.
Well, right. That's because the math simply doesn't work. I mean,
That makes for a tough sale.
That's a tough sell. So Carla particularly walks around town. She was at a gubernatorial debate, and she said, "Wow, look, the state budget is $83 billion. They can find savings." Okay. However, let's break that down for a second. About half of that budget is Medicaid. Okay. If you save money in Medicaid, where does that savings go? Does it go to your own pocket, or does it go back to the federal government? It goes back to the federal government. So, truth be told, there's no incentive for states to try to save money because it's not their money in the first place. Okay? That's give or take half. All right? So of the remaining half, it works out in about a third. About a third of that money is what they call restricted funds. Okay? By our Constitution, this money can only be used for a particular purpose. Largest among them being roads. Okay? We're going to take now, we've gotten rid of the sales tax on gas. We replace it with a fuel tax. And the fuel tax is dedicated to roads only. Okay?
Right.
So in truth be told, is anyone in this state going to argue that we can cut money from roads and do less road repair?
Doesn't sound like a good idea to me.
No, no one does. No one, not a single person believes that. Okay? So that's off the table. A third of the remainder, so a sixth of the total, is a school aid fund. Okay? So the school aid fund. So that money comes from various different sources, including that 6 mil tax goes in, and it's a pot, and it's divided by schools. Okay? Do we think there's a lot of cost savings in a school aid fund where right now, for example, the Michigan Teachers for Pension Fund, MIPSERS is what it's called, has a $30 billion hole? No, there's not. You've been robbing Peter to pay Paul on that one for decades.
Issues have always been a problem.
Always been a problem. Okay. So that group, those two groups, are really not available for your cutting. Okay. So you're left with the general fund. Okay. The general fund, fiscal year 25-26, just came out, is give or take about $15 billion. So you're going to cut 100% of the school aid of the general fund and then some just to break even? No, you're not. No, you're not. You cannot replace. Oh, by the way, what is the replacement amount of tax that's going to come out of this? Well, the total collected, give or take, in the categories that are covered by excise tax is give or take about $28 billion annually. And that's income, excise, sales and use, that kind of stuff. Okay? That's give or take about 29 billion. So 10% of that is 2.8 or $2.9 billion. So you're going to take away $17 billion of revenue from the localities, which, by the way, as we said, most of it stays local. And you're going to replace that with $2.8 billion from the state. Now, how does that work? It doesn't work at all.
Seems upside down.
Yeah, it works at.
The math doesn't work.
Yeah, it works at what a $15 billion deficit is. The only way it works.
$15 billion deficit across local governments.
Right.
Okay. Love them. I love the people. The math doesn't work. And that's frankly a reflection of bad leadership.
And they'll be quick to say, well, those municipalities in the state and everything just needs to tighten their belt and find the money, find a way to make it happen. Okay. And I can't disagree, but you can't tighten your belt that much.
Yeah. Well, like Matt said, I mean, are you going to cut 100% of your general budget, your general fund, just to break even?
Right.
No, you have other things you have to pay for.
Right. I mean, look, and the reality is, I encourage everybody, and we're going to talk about my next kind of point here, when it has to do with where the money is kept. Okay.
Right.
So Rush, you're on your township board. I was on my school board. So we pass a tax, or we want to consider a tax or a millage. Okay. Well, the first thing I get a half a dozen people who want details. Okay. And our position was always the same. We're going to give you an absurd amount of details, and we're going to have it all available on the internet for anyone who wants to look at it, because that's the only way we can build trust. When I was on my school board, when I was treasurer of my school board, we put our check register online. So if a teacher got $50 back for Panera, she bought for her classroom, it shows.
It was there.
We want everybody looking at it. And truth be told, twice we found bad stuff. One time a woman ended up in jail based on something we found. Okay. You want that level of transparency. Okay. You have to do that in order to get people to understand that what you're asking for is necessary. All right. Same thing with when we did our bond. We said, hey, here are all the projects, line by line. Here's what they cost. Click on the link. We'll show you if we have bid documents yet. Okay. Oh, click on that link. It'll show you the plans and specs for what's being built. Not very many people wanted to look at it, but you
Sure.
did that thing. Now, what that allowed you to do is if there was a problem, you would hear from somebody locally. Okay. For example, neighboring community to the south, they had a splash pad and it was going to cost like $325,000 to fix it. New election comes, new supervisor comes in. He's like, whoa, we're going to pull the reins on this one. Let's take another look at it. And they do. And people dug in and they figured out a way to get it done for like $100,000.
There you go.
Beautiful, beautiful thing. Save the community $200 some $1,000. They're willing to do that because it's local. They put the scrutiny on because it's local. Okay? There are two axioms in politics and finance. Okay? Number one, the closer you are, the more control you have.
I agree.
Right? I call my township board. Hey, why are you spending this? I saw your lawnmower and he was sleeping on the lawnmower. You shouldn't be paying him. You know what? I get a little bit of attention. I make that same call to Lansing. They ignore me. I make
deaf ears.
Yeah. Washington. Ha ha ha. That's funny. They couldn't care less.
People like you and I might have direct connect to a state rep, and most people should or could, but most people can't. You're going to call their office with a complaint and get a staffer, and you don't know if it gets to where it needs to go or not. Sitting on a township board, you call me, I answer my phone. I put my number everywhere. On the website is my email that I check every day. Just a good example of local control compared to state government control.
Right. So the question is for Axe My Tax for the people, let's say you figure out a way to replace the revenue, which you haven't. You're going to tell me that money is going to come from Lansing to my community without strings attached?
Of course it is.
You know, and you think about it, and this wasn't that long ago, people. It wasn't that long ago that Lansing was telling you couldn't have, 5 years ago at this time, Lansing was telling you couldn't have Thanksgiving dinner.
That's right.
And how would you feel if your money went to the cops and there was a directive that they were supposed to drive around your community looking for unlawful Thanksgiving dinners?
Right. Let's take the devil's advocate in what the Axe My Tax people claim, that since it's a constitution, an amendment to the Constitution, that the portions of money that your local municipality is supposed to get is set in stone, and there's no way that there'd be strings attached.
First of all, that happens to be fundamentally not true, because what it says in the initiative itself, it says this becomes revenue sharing. Revenue sharing right now comes with restrictions, that there's no difference between that.
Do you know they just took 8% of revenue sharing from my township and every township and in every county commission in the state on this last state budget? 8% gone.
Yeah, right. And you have no control over it.
That's right.
And you wake up one day, oh, by the way, that budget wasn't available when you did your budgeting in September 30.
That's right.
Late, right. So you had to make your budget, your yearly budget, on a guessing whether this stuff is going to show up or not. Okay. So you lack the control over the revenue. You lack the control over eliminating expenses. It doesn't work. Okay. It doesn't work. So another question that I got on the math, because I asked the question very early on, and I would just ask a question and wait for an answer. I would say, what is the source of the replacement revenue? And the first answer I got was, well, read the proposal. And I said, I'm a lawyer, man. I said, I'm looking at it right now, and I don't see one. And their response was, well, there's this replacement revenue sharing, which I said, you're off by order $15 billion. And to go on and think that you are going to have this come from heaven and not have controls, it's just not. It's preposterous. So they had suggested, well, the state will increase the sales tax to catch up with it. Okay.
You can't increase it enough.
Well, good point. How much would you have to increase it? Okay. So last year, sales tax brought in about $12 billion at 6%. to replace the $17 billion that we missed, 17 and a half, you'd have to raise sales tax to approximately 15% to make that work.
Ouch.
Oh, by the way, who's looking out for people on fixed incomes? Because that sure as heck doesn't help them.
Yeah. Not at all.
And oh, by the way, who tried this before? It's the good people of Vermont, led by Bernie Sanders.
Oh.
They were going to pass a new tax that was going to pay for universal health care. And you know what they found as they were preparing it? We can't make this work. These numbers don't work. We would have to increase our sales tax to 20% to make this work.
I hate to say it, it's a numbers game.
It's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. So how do we get on the other side of the numbers? What's the right thing to do? The right thing to do is, as you alluded to, scrutinize the heck out of any millage proposal you get.
Right.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you, 2025 was not a great election for Republicans as a general rule, but there were some major wins in taxes.
It sure was.
Livonia had a almost $100 and some million, $150 million bond go down.
Oh.
Troy's not a Republican town. It used to be. It isn't anymore. It had a $100 and something million thing go down. We had several schools, big schools millages go down.
Monroe Community College went down.
Again, for another time, right? And that's the type of things that people have to do to get control of that. And you know what's happening in Monroe County? They're now going to sit down with the people that opposed it. That's people you and I know, Russ, right? Mm-hmm. And they're going to have a conversation about building support. And it goes beyond one of the things that people understand kind of intuitively, but see it in front of their faces, is that when the money leads the policies, okay? Because part of the problem at Monroe is that the money isn't a good idea. Part of the problem is that they have policies that are awful. You know, girls in the boys' bathroom. That kind of thing.
We just said Holly on.
Yeah. Oh, did you? Holly and I worked together on this. This is great. But now you got their attention. Hey, you want my support? Boy, I think these bathrooms ought to be segregated, right? Like they have been for thousands of years.
Right. Since the invention of bathrooms.
Matt, something that, before I forget, that I thought was interesting. If you go back to July and going into August, and the school boards were trying to set their budget, and they technically couldn't. The state is required to pass their budget by, is it August 1st, Matt?
Theirs is September 30. State is September 30.
So the state didn't pass a budget at the time that they were supposed to. It took another month or whatever it was, leaving the school boards in limbo to do their budget. Okay. And I thought about on a township level, would you want the state to drag their feet and fight like they do in Lansing, waiting for the state to pass a budget so we can get our revenue sharing? So we can't even pass our budget until they pass theirs. And they're a hot mess. You know, we might have discussions on our budget. We allow people to a public hearing on it. Usually it goes right through. I wish it would take longer. But the schools were sitting there waiting for the state, and everybody was complaining about it. It was a mess. Could you imagine that, plus adding the municipalities waiting for the state budget to figure out how you can proceed for the next fiscal year?
Well, I think a bigger issue there as well is that's not a concern, but that's a bigger issue because you wouldn't have to do your budget. The state does it for you.
They set the money. I hope.
Yeah, I mean, but in this situation, it would they'd say, here's the money. You know, this is what you have. They would have to set the budget. I mean, that's unfortunate. And I don't want to get too off track, but I do want to address the chat just for a moment. And just because it's Lance mostly, I think that there's a misconception that what we're talking about, we're not trying to replace anything unless the Axe My Tax goes through. We have to replace that money or there's no money. It's honestly, you keep saying this Republicans fighting their own. We actually just had this conversation before the show. Ask Carla. It's Republicans and Democrats, and so it's not Republicans fighting their own. It's looking at numbers and
thanks
doing math.
Thanks for staying on track, Lance.
No, I look, I appreciate the comment. I get the idea that there is this I belief that magically there's. I had someone say to me, "We have splash pads." I said, "You know what? You don't have $17 billion in splash pads annually."
Right.
Okay, it's not there. If you think it's there, start with your local township, start with your local government, and cut away. And you can do that. Here's the thing. Here's another difference. Sales taxes do not have to go to people for approval. Okay, periodically, right? None of us, I know I didn't. You didn't vote for the 6% sales tax increase because I wasn't yet I probably was. Yeah, I was just about over voting age, so maybe I barely remember it. But that was in 1994. It's never been put before voters since then. Okay? It doesn't have to. What has to is those bonds, those millages. They have to go for renewal. And if you don't want them, there's a town, Oxford. Oxford rejected their operating non-resident millage. Okay? Where that's taxes that are paid by not residents. And they said, we're cutting it off because obviously they had their issues and they haven't done a good job of handling it. If you think you can win that vote statewide, win that vote locally first. Win that vote in your own town. If you can't win that vote in your own town, specifically in your own red town, you probably ought to understand you cannot export that to the rest of the state. The math doesn't work. We've been through it. It's a bad strategy.
Man, I've had a concern all along. So you take the existing millages that have been passed around the state for schools, public safety, whatever it is. Axe my tax, gets the signatures, it's on the ballot, and it passes. All those millages that were in bonds that were approved by the voters, whether you like it or not, whether you voted for it or not, it was approved by the voters. And maybe it was on a May ballot that I absolutely hate. It doesn't matter. They used the rules that were in front of them. The millage passed. You're putting an addition, you build a new library or putting an addition on a school, whatever the heck it is. The people of that community passed it. Now you've taken it away. Not only have you disenfranchised the will of the voters, but what happens to, say, a school board went out, the school goes out and gets a loan because the bond or the millage is going to pay for this addition or whatever it is they asked for. Now that revenue source is gone because you've pulled the plug on all millages. What happens? Do they go in default? Does the state bail them out? Where is it? That's a huge question that a person here in Jackson was all in on the first Axe My Tax initiative, even had financial resources into it, and walked away on the second time because, and he said it on a podcast right from the studio, that's one thing they never could answer. And to me, that's significant.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. That's exactly correct. I mean, those bonds for a school or for municipality or other type of government, they're still due.
Yeah.
You still have those payments to make. And, oh, by the way, that you can't cut beneath that. Okay? That money is owed sometimes over a long period of time. And now you have no source of revenue to replace it. Right? It's not a matter of you, and understand that a lot of these things are what they call general obligation bonds, right? And we've been through this. We've been through this with the city of Detroit and other places where you owe too much. You've got
bankruptcy.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to. What are you going to do?
My little township could face bankruptcy. My
To-
my school, one of the school districts in my township could face bankruptcy.
Correct.
Yeah, right.
So I mean, it's just ridiculous, and it's not a thing.
And,
And
and even if the state said, okay, this passed, and I think there's a 2-year gap before, let's say there was a passage of Axe My Tax, and when and if I remember the first time around, Kevin, do you remember? There's a 2-year.
I think,
so they can figure their shit out.
I believe so.
But let's say the state says, okay, we'll bail everybody out on this because these voters voted for it. Look how costly that would be to the state. And then that would mean that other communities that didn't have anything to do with that bond are now responsible for all those bonds.
Right? Oh, wait, you mean that you no longer have there? It's no longer going to be divided and controlled locally. Do you think that the state government in Lansing in 2024 in 100% control of Democrats is not going to figure out a way to give more revenue to blue-leaning communities?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that is absolutely possible. No, it is not prohibited by the document. And frankly, I heard multiple times, just read it, as if pushing me in front of a long piece of paper is somehow going to confuse me and make me throw up my hands and say, I don't know. It's not there. There's no replacement revenue there. There's no solution to these problems.
And the state would have to find that money.
And the state would have to find the state.
They have no money.
We would have to pay for it.
It's the same.
Correct. And guess what? An increase in the income tax requires what? It requires taxpayer approval. So I'm sorry. I get. First of all, I want to clear up one other misconception. Old people are going to lose their houses. All right. Well,
let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. So first of all, probably ought to reflect the fact the law has changed. Okay. So back in the day, that was a thing, right? You owe a little bit of taxes. You don't pay them. State comes in, takes your house, sells it. The court has ruled, and this is a Supreme Court case. It was pretty egregious. It was like, a few $100, and the guy lost his house. Said that's a taking, and if you take the guy's property and you sell it for a profit, you got to give him the profit.
Right.
The other thing is that's now legally the case, but also factually, these assessors don't want your house. They want you to pay the dang taxes. So they're going to try anything they can to get you to do so. All right. So here's another thing about taxes and the answer to that question. Taxes on real estate are what they call in rem, Latin for on the thing or attached to the thing. Okay. They attach to your house. They don't attach to you personally. So if you have a house and something happens and it's burned down and you got a tax bill that's due, if you don't pay your taxes, can they sue you personally? They cannot.
That's right. And I'll give a great example. I was forced with a business that I used to own to where I was barely paying my property taxes in the third year in the last minute. Okay. The struggle's real. I get it. Okay. But I've also been in financial binds over my years because I'm old. Thankfully, it's better now, to where I've had court officers banging on my door to take my property, my snowmobiles, my this, my that, over a civil suit, whatever it is, because you didn't pay. Mm-hmm. Okay. One thing about property tax, if they take your property, they just took your property. You move on in life. Now, I don't want grandma losing their home. I don't want people losing their property. I get that should be a fundamental right of citizens to own property.
But we don't ever.
Nor will you.
I mean, either way, property tax, yes, I agree. You're renting off the government.
Well, look,
I think we brought up a good point that it's not that we disagree with the abolishment of property taxes. It's how to go about it.
How to do it.
And I think that's what the concern is. I'm definitely concerned with on our end and concerned on many people's end.
Yeah, I mean, look, everyone, you, me, and everyone on our side, we agree. This is not fun. This is not universally agreed. Democrats don't agree with this. That we are in favor of less taxes. I am, like, again, back to Grover Norquist, who I love the guy. His thing was, I don't want to eliminate government. I want to shrink it down so it's so small that I can drown it in my bathtub. And you do that over time, and you do that with care, and you do that by diving into the numbers and saying, do we really need to do that?
So
Right? When government runs lean, you can get away with that. Now, let me ask you, when you shift revenue from local to Lansing, do you think that drives them making things lean? It does not.
What really got me going back in the summer is the whole, and you know what, this is minimal compared to what the concerns really are. The numbers are a concern. Disenfranchising the voters who approved a millage or bond with the rules that were set up in front of us. You're going to just say your vote doesn't matter now. That's concerning. And then also the biggest concern and question that can't be answered is the default that would happen on the bonds that had been passed, whatever the case may be. But you go back to local control. And I try to keep it simple in my shoes as a township trustee. Okay. I'm in my first year, but I've been to every township board meeting for 10 years. Okay. I know how this works. We're going to pass a budget. The budget is posted online. You have time to read it, review it. There's a public hearing. People come in. Guess what? Our last budget meeting that we had middle of summer, no one spoke up about the budget. Not one person in that public hearing. Not a one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Pass the budget. Doesn't matter what the hell it is. And off it goes. My phone didn't ring one time. Okay. But my point here is it could have. It should have. All right. If you have a concern with the budget or way things are being spent within the municipality that you live, you have access to the people that vote on that. Giving more control to Lansing is a horrible idea. I've heard reference, Lance is one of them. Carl is one of them. Well, if you don't support X, my tax, or the elimination of property tax, that's not very Republican of you. Well, you know what's not very Republican of you is the expansion of state government. Mm-hmm. Local is where it's at. That's where you have contact. Yes, I have my state reps direct cell phone numbers, and maybe everybody should, but they don't. And I said it previously in this show. Local is where it's at. I'm your neighbor, and you can change the way things are going within your community. We're up against the rezoning of some open space and farmland to heavy industrial. I think our board was going to pass it. I found a way for us to kick the can. I don't know how I did it. And public outcry finally come on. Guess what? They're changing their mind. That's how it works. Good luck trying to change the mind of the bureaucrats in Lansing, taking away local control. That's really what's got me concerned before I started looking at all the other problems associated with this.
Well, look, and it's important that people understand that your listener understands this. Those people that are making the decisions locally, they many times welcome your help.
I need it.
Right. If somebody goes to you and says, hey, look, man, I just want to let you know, I looked at your lawn contract and their guy's overcharging you and it's twice the price. You may not know that. You want to know that. We had a situation in our local school district. I love this story. So we had a school drop off and pick up, and the cars.
By the way, those are always a nightmare.
It was a complete nightmare, and it fell onto 8 Mile. It was causing all kinds of traffic issues.
Yeah.
We did this, and we're going to redesign it. We go through this entire meeting, and this guy stands up at the end of the meeting and says, by the way, I just want to let you know, everything you're doing is wrong. And I know because I'm a traffic flow engineer, and I'd be happy to redesign your parking lot for free.
You've run into a traffic flow engineer.
Oh, we said, whoa, come on up.
Well, okay, guy.
And he did, and it was amazing, and he did it for free. You know why? Because he's fixing his local community.
Yes.
He saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars.
It probably gave you something that made sense.
And it was perfect. It was amazing. I have no idea
Not
why.
that all engineers give you something that makes sense. You need engineers and then a couple of normal guys
always
to
said
throw
that.
in the normal
Yeah,
stuff.
you
But
need a normal
There are a
guy.
couple of normies, right? I'm a lawyer. People do that to me all the time. Like, you're not a normal guy.
Yeah, that's making sense.
So, but the point is that your local government, they're people. They're people like
Yeah.
you and me, right? I sit on my planning commission. We've been talking, everyone's been talking about data centers nonstop. So
here they are.
right? Everyone is. And but my thing is, my opinion is no more valuable than anyone else in the crowd, but I want to hear it, right? That's my job. And they need your help. They need your help to save money. You think you're going to go to Lansing and tell them, because this is what Carla said, they're going to find places to cut. Are they? Are they?
Man, I've been to Lansing with 200 people to oppose something. Spoke in Senate hearings and things like that. Okay. Yeah, we're mad. We're going up there. And we look at that. We have 200 people and we're showing them, even if you had 2,000 people, doesn't mean that they heard you. They might have heard you, but nothing happens. If you come 200 deep to a township meeting, oh, we hear that.
Well, look, I spoke in Lansing, 3 weeks ago on the new sex education standards. We had 50 people speak. We had 100 people in the hallway. And you know what they did and looked at us? They, I mean, I had a guy on the State Board of Education fell asleep. He was sleeping at the table with 100 people in the crowd. They couldn't care less what you think.
And they did what they did what they were set out to do. Your voices were not heard.
Right. And locally, that does work, because what happens is
They're your neighbors.
you go the wrong way on a local issue, and you know what you get? You get Goshen. And
So-
you walk in, and they come in at the next election, and they throw your asses out. And
That's right. Or
Or
recall you. I've
recall
been through recalls with elected officials. It's successful recalls.
Exactly.
There's
Exactly.
Tons
So,
of options.
look.
Go ahead and try to recall a state representative.
Right. Look.
Don't hear of it because you're not going to be able to do it. So why on earth most of the volunteers for Axe My Tax are less government oriented, yet they refuse to look at that angle. They're so wrapped up into, let's eliminate property tax because I'm going to save some money because I own a dozen rentals or whatever the reason being. And you're cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. You might live in a community in Lance in the chat. He lives in a county. They're corrupt.
Yeah.
I know they are. It's a neighboring county. I've been involved with this Hillsdale thing for several years. It is a corrupt part of the state. Okay. And I get why they're frustrated because they can't change things at the local level. Okay. But how does that affect my community? I've seen successful recalls.
Mhm.
I got elected after 3 times. They finally got on my township board. Okay. After 3 times. So the process works. It doesn't work as fast as you want it to, but I've seen it work fast, but it does work. It works a lot faster at the local level than it ever does in Lansing.
Yeah, I mean, look, the reality of this proposal is this. And again, I say the people that are putting the effort in, good on you, right? Thank you for being an active participant.
I do too.
It's just a failure of leadership. I mean, when this first came out, I had one of my really good volunteers. She's amazing. She's knocked doors on campaigns. She's phone banked. She's done all these things. And she says, how does this work? And I looked at her and said, it doesn't. She said, oh, that's what I thought. And she put it down.
Oh,
Right? Because you have to have a leader who says this works or this doesn't work. What we have is a concept. Okay. One of my favorite sports lines of all time, Herm Edwards says, a goal without a plan is a wish.
Yep.
A goal without a plan is a wish. We have a goal to eliminate property taxes. We do not have a plan to do so. Therefore, it is a wish. I wish we could eliminate property taxes. You want a plan to do that? I'll give you an example. Whoever suggested, and it's been suggested by a lot of people, that these elections should be limited to November of even year elections.
That's right.
100%.
And you know what, Matt? But that's not an immediate fix, but it's an appropriate fix. And a lot of things don't happen as fast as you like it to. But if you were to move all these requests to the even November even years, presidential and midterm elections, slowly you'd get your hands around these out of control millage requests. And
It wouldn't be slowly. You would be much more quickly than people think.
And then it's two things: voter turnout, and that only gives them a bite at the apple once every 2 years.
Well, and it has a lot of accountability to it because people tie it very quickly to other elections. Okay. So for example, there was a big school bond in Taylor. It is the most egregious fiscal mismanagement I've probably ever seen in my life. They put out a bond for $30 million to build a new school. The bond passed. They're required by law to take the money. They did. Only after taking the money did they find out they're $20 million short.
Whoops.
And they have to spend the money because that's a requirement as well. You can't just put it in a bank account. So now they're required to run around and spend this money on things that aren't a school and then go back to the people and say, we now would like a school. So what happened is people are going crazy on their local government saying how egregious this is. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to throw them all out. And that's how you get things impacted is you come in, I support this. This is wrong. It's a bad idea. And they throw them out. And it's really kind of happened in Livonia too. They had this plan was going to be some public safety buildings. Okay. People can have different opinions on that. But then they had this kind of fake downtown. And people looked at it and said, no way. And it got smashed at the ballot. And it impacted their elections because people were not inclined, and this is a nonpartisan election, but they were not inclined R or D to support people who supported that tax. Right? And you're going to see that in a lot of places. Affordability is the number one issue, right? The number one issue is affordability. I'm not bringing a tax on the ballot. Like, for example, in Wayne County, we're going to have a fight about buses. So previously, buses were, we were allowed to opt out of what they call SMART, particularly because Detroit opted out. So Wayne County was allowed other communities to opt out. Our piece of garbage representatives that are all Democrats, they all voted to take away that right. So now we're going to have a new millage on the ballot for buses that we don't use now and never will use in the future. So now you get to ask your representatives, do you support increasing taxes for something we don't use? And when I say we don't use, there aren't lines in the areas. There never will be. They aren't proposed. We did the math at a presentation, and the average bus has 4.5 people on it. 4.5 people.
4.5 people.
Our buses in our small school district tend to be packed. But I'll tell you what, our city buses,
they go around and they whatever. This is just a bus. You know, we don't want to drive our cars, even though we're in the Motor City.
Sure.
And so we're going to run around and say, hey, do you support this millage? Can people afford this for buses that they don't use and they're never going to use? In Oakland County, if you're familiar with the geography of Oakland County, their bus system stops at Waterford. Doesn't go any further north than Waterford. So you have 20 miles between Waterford and the tip of the county, and everybody in that area is paying for bus service, right? So the people have to get engaged on their local issues, dig in, and when appropriate, vote them down, and when appropriate, vote them out.
So I think what happens in thinking about what my township's dealing now with this heavy industrial zoning request is they're like, you try to sneak this in on us. Well, no, we didn't. A developer filled out the appropriate paperwork, turned it in, and we have to deal with it. Okay. And then we were going to vote on this in September, right, Kevin? In October.
October.
In October.
Yeah.
with 3 people in opposition to it in the audience. It's on the website, everywhere. Okay. You can't count on media anymore to let you know these things are coming up. And our township board looked like they were going to pass it. I happened to notice that some residents in a nearby trailer park hadn't been notified. And so I asked the township attorney who was in the meeting, hey, is it just the property management company or the owners of the trailer park that should be notified, or should it be the residents? And he looked up the MCL real quick, and oh my goodness, the residents of the trailer park have to be notified.
Right.
Yep.
Which then we tabled it, and they had to start the whole process over again. The media gets a hold of it finally, one media outlet, and of course, right after that, the rest jumped on, which then the outpour of people started coming. But I was trying to tell them, you don't have to be engaged as much as Russ Jennings. My son sits right here next to me, and he'll say, Dad, you're nuts. Okay.
Yeah.
But you have to be somewhat engaged in your community. So can you decide, figure out when your local school board meetings are, and your local township meetings or village meetings are, and days before those meetings, jump on the website, see what's on the agenda. My township has the whole agenda packet on the website. You can look at every number.
Leone Township has a very nice website.
In our county, same thing, the whole
yeah.
agenda packet. The city of Jackson, whole agenda packet. So somewhere along the line, we need the community to be somewhat engaged in what's happening. So you don't get, well, you just try to sneak it up on us. Well, I don't know, short of knocking on your door and letting you know 13,000 residents in Leone Township, I don't know how else to communicate with you. You see, you follow me here?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And look, people need to understand, they want your input because they sometimes know what you think and sometimes they don't. And they want to hear from one side and all sides. Right? They want to hear that input. It's your civic duty, right?
I've been getting a couple of hundred emails on this issue that I was just referencing. I never get emails, a couple hundred emails. And yes, a lot of them are copy and paste emails designed by someone else. I go through them all. If it's a copy and paste, I move on. But some are original. Hey, Trustee Jennings, yap, 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 yap. I read them. Now, some of them I think, well, they're environmental wackos. And then others I'm like, hey, you got a good point. But my point here is that input is welcome. Your citizen comment, yes, we've all been to meetings where it looks like a board member might be drifting off in space, but the most of them we're engaged in what you have to say. And it's a lot easier to do that at a local level than it is to testify in a Senate hearing committee.
They're not going to listen. They have no reason to listen to you.
No, and what a nerve-wracking issue that is. You got to drive to Lansing, find a parking spot, figure out what room they're doing in that big old Capitol. And even if you're good at public speaking, it is a nerve-wracking situation. You just did it, Matt. And you're an attorney. I'm sure it wasn't just a snap for you.
No,
it's a lot easier to do it at your local level. I live in the second largest township and area in the state. It's a massive township. Not population, area. Yes, I don't know everybody, but it's funny. They're still your neighbors. You're going to get to know them at some level. When they approach and I don't know them and they bring up an issue, guess what? I was just talking to my neighbor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, we had a development. I said on my planning commission, we have a development right next to our subdivision. You think I'm gonna have some input? Yeah, I have some input. And am I going to recuse myself? No, I'm not, because my input is just like anybody else's.
Oh,
the key is you have that control, you have that input. Going back to this plan, it takes that away. And what I find fascinating about this is, and again, this is at the top level, this is not at the volunteer level, is that these are discussion points that should have been had when this proposal was being drafted. Like, how are we going to stop that from happening? How are we going to do this or do that next?
How are we going to handle this question? How are we going to handle that? There's been very little attempt in that.
Right. I'm working on the citizens only voting amendment right? And we're doing a phenomenal job.
You guys are rocking it.
They're rocking it. You know why? Because
You know what? That's an easy sell too. We've turned in stacks of petitions.
stacks. And I'll tell you what's interesting about it is that's version 2.0. Version 1.0 had flaws. And they looked at him, oh boy, before we started collecting signatures, people were like, hey, wait a minute, you got problems here. So they corrected all the flaws. Then they went out and started collecting signatures. Like one of them is, not to go off topic here, but what the question is, what do you need to do to verify your citizenship? Well, in version 1.0, it was left open, wasn't described. In version 2.0, it was, you may provide 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Various documents. Called the problem. Version 1.0, what if the clerk doesn't comply? Nothing. Version 2.0, civil and criminal penalties, right? So there's changes to it. You do better the next time around.
So we're in 2.0 of Axe My Tax, but there's really no difference in 1.0 to 2.0.
No. Right. And the reality is, so people understand, you only have 6 months to collect, right?
Yeah.
So, and the problem that you have is in Michigan, spring and summer are great, fall and winter are not so great. So if you're right, so we're getting to December 1, and you're going to lose the signatures from May, for example.
They're playing that game. I watched a video today. I think the writing's on the wall. They're already saying, hey, guys, get your petitions turned in by November 30th. We're collecting. We're bringing on new signature people now. We'll have them collect into December while we figure out what the number is. I'm thinking more and more we're moving towards them pulling the plug on this initiative because they started in April and May. The weather was getting nice. They went through the summer. Apparently, they don't have the numbers, or they still wouldn't be. Every day they go past the 180 days, you peel a day off the front end, right, Matt?
That is correct. Every day you go, when you get to November 25th, subtract 180 days, you lost that signature.
That's right. Now they've done 30 days of this or more. So, so you've lost April, May, and you're expected to cover those signatures or recollect those signatures, which would be hell, because a lot of them are collected at an event or something like that.
Right.
And then you got to backtrack depending on volunteers. And like you just said, we're coming into the cold months, and it's harder to collect. Events are few and far between. Right. Knocking doors becomes difficult. We're at the point you're wasting the time of volunteers. Good, dedicated, mean well volunteers.
Well, look, you said it right in the beginning. You know what we're rapidly approaching? We're rapidly approaching 2026. 2026 is going to be absolutely pivotal, and it is a unbelievable opportunity for Republicans. For the first time in ever, I can't remember one, maybe someone else can, we're going to have a 3-way race for governor.
Yeah.
And a big chunk of that is what are previously very solid Democratic votes, say in the city of Detroit, are at best going to be split. Okay? So you have an opportunity to win a series of elections. For example, I have seen nothing. Maybe somebody else has seen something different. Is there going to be an independent running for Secretary of State or Attorney General?
Yeah, well,
I don't know. I don't know. So
there's still time.
It's also very hard. You have to get 30,000 signatures per person.
Sure. We're running out of time with that.
We're out of time with that. So I don't know what the answer to the question is. How does that impact their Senate race? How does that impact our Senate race? What about State House? We have in Northville, we have a redistricted state Senate race, right? So we have a lot of things going on. I want to win those things. You have finite resources. What we can't have is a poorly designed plan with leadership that will not explain, with people, frankly, who walk around town making the most bizarre sets of counter arguments that I've ever heard of. And they're trying to draw resources. Now, look, financially, I don't know how she raises her money. I don't know how most people raise their money. Do what you do. But when I've got volunteers, I want them focusing on campaigns that are winnable, preferably locally.
Matt, right? All right, as I'm in the second term as the county chair. Previous to that, I was the treasurer. and been in this game a decade, more than a decade. And the weight of this election season in 2026, I've never felt it so heavy on my shoulders as ever before. And I take out, you ask my son Kevin, I take elections pretty darn seriously.
Yeah, pretty seriously.
Man, the weight on this, you add in the U.S. Senate seat. We've got this governor thing, SOS, AG. Our state's been such a mess. And then locally, we found a candidate to run for a state house seat that's been held by a Democrat since redistricting. We found a Senate candidate to run for a state Senate seat that a Democrat's held since redistricting. And these are very Democratic-leaned Senate and House districts. We got a lot going on, man. There is a lot going on. Then when you add in the U.S. Senate seat and these races for governor, and I go back to the beginning of today's show, the first time with Axe My Tax, I had a handful of active Republicans within the party, some even executive committee members. I didn't see at all of 2024. We shared our headquarters with the Trump campaign. We were out hitting the pavement for Trump. We were out hitting the pavement for House seats that we were trying to retain, because we do have a House seat that covers most of Jackson. That's a +2 Dem seat. It's held by Kathy Schmaltz. We've won it every time. Okay. But they didn't lift a finger for any of these local candidates. We had my own seat for trustee. We had county commission seats. These people were nowhere. They were focused on Axe My Tax, an initiative that I don't think they thought through all the way. They're just going by the fact, let's eliminate property tax. And I'm going to throw something out there that's going to piss a few people off. Some of the key people in Jackson County that are all in on Axe My Tax. I go to the GIS. My God, they own a lot of property in Jackson County.
Well,
okay.
I mean, is that reasonable? I mean,
okay, they're not the heavy hitters here in town. They're not Consumers Energy or something, but wow, they own quite a lot of property. I've been a landlord. I've owned several properties. It'd have been nice to take property tax.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. Did you just say out loud that when you cut property taxes, you're going to give a giant tax break to Consumers Energy? Huh. Weird. And a giant tax break to Dan Gilbert, and a giant tax break to Mike Ilitch.
That's right.
Tax break to every large. Oh, you're not cutting residential taxes. You're cutting all taxes. Again, it's these things that you could have corrected. So people need to go back to, and I'll give this as back to 1994. Okay, 1994. Before 1994, your local government could increase your taxes whenever it wanted. Right. And there was no provision to cap the amount of assessment you had. Okay. Those were two things that existed. And the state said, we got to fix this. Okay. And they did this amazing thing where they basically jumped off a cliff with a parachute in one hand. And they said, we're going to pass a law providing for, to leave a tax increase at 4% and then do something with taxes. And then there was an option to move it to 6% of a sales tax. And then it was going to have all this capping of property taxes. And as you know, the 6% plus the property tax cap all passed. And it redid entirely how your taxes are funded. Okay. So it's this massive reform, and it's a great thing, right? It's very important. My dad passed away last year. He lived in the house I grew up in. His taxes crept up at 2% every year. I went and sold the house.
It's brutal.
It sold for almost 10 times what he paid for it in 1972. If he had to pay taxes on it at the value that it was worth, it would have been very expensive for him. It's not. It's not because of Proposal A, right? The new buyer, they have to pay taxes based on what it's worth. Okay, That makes sense, right? There are these reforms in place.
But then they get capped after that.
Correct. They get capped after that. So that new family, and I know it's a family with kids, their taxes are going to go up 2% a year, right? They don't have to wake up one day and go, it went up 10%. All right. And when you, again, and that's all done locally, it's required. If you have a millage, it has to be put before a vote. That wasn't true prior to 1994. You cannot collect more in taxes than the amount that is collected at the same time when you pass the tax. That's called Headley. Sometimes you ask for what's called Headley override. That didn't exist prior to 1994. All those things are in place. So I get people's enthusiasm. I get they want to reduce taxes. I do too. My opinion.
Candidates that get our arms around it.
Look, my thing is, you got some candidates out there finally talking about cutting the income tax.
Let's give Carla the credit where credit's due. She's got every single one of them candidates for governor talking about some sort of reform or something with property tax. Now, I do think this would have come up as a topic sooner or later, probably sooner, with or without Carla, but she has put it on the forefront.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that the problem is it comes with a lot of lack of understanding of where your money goes and what.
I agree.
Right. She just doesn't understand. She's I'm
part of that process on a township board, and it's even difficult for me to fully understand.
I did some deep research in it recently, and
I do know I don't want to get handed over to Lansing.
Yeah, it just literally detangles my brain on how exactly it all, because there's always something missing. It seems like a link missing.
I think that goes back to the system isn't perfect, but a new system isn't going to be perfect either.
Yeah,
and something before we look at here, we're rolling up on that hour and a half that I talked about, Matt. This show does this all the time. There's never enough time to discuss everything thoroughly. But real quick, Granny losing their home. Okay. Yeah. All right. In Jackson County, I wish I remember or had the exact numbers in front of me. There's quite a few properties that are foreclosed on every year. They're mostly 95% or more are vacant land, businesses that went out of business. The list goes on and on. Very rarely do we have a family or granny getting ran out of their home. Okay. Matt, I'm sure you don't want grandma ran out of the home. You talked about your father getting a 2% increase every year.
You know who else doesn't want grandma or grandpa run out of their home? The tax assessor doesn't.
No, they don't.
Right. They don't, because and look, I'm in Wayne County.
They just want you to pay.
That's right. And they're willing to be to give you time. I mean, in Detroit, city of Detroit, they enter into payment plans all the time. Now, you have to talk about your income and things like that. If you're a property speculator, you're not going to get a discount or a break, right? If you're living in the house and you own it, and especially if it's a familial asset, something like that, and you say, hey, can I pay this back thing over 5 years? They will do something like that. It's the concept of saying we need to remove this because this thing happens. The statistics, unfortunately, don't bear that out. That's not a thing.
No, it doesn't. I do wonder, maybe you could have a better answer this better. Is there a way for us, instead of seizing property after property taxes are not paid, to do some sort of a lien situation on those properties instead of?
Effectively, that's what it is now. That's why this is dried up.
I see.
Right? Because you first of all, taxes trump a mortgage. Okay, so if you don't pay your taxes and you pay your mortgage, the taxes, they can come in, they wipe out a mortgage. Okay,
sure.
And so your taxes, give or take, there's something in the area of 1.5% of the value of your property, right? Okay, so you have to be underwater. Now look, I was in the business. I am in the business. I was in the business in 2009, 2010. 2009, 2010, you had this anomaly where all these people had liens on their property that vastly exceeded the value of the property. And they walked away. And a lot of times they walked away and no one was around to pay the taxes, and the property was put back. This isn't a situation where people lived there. This is a situation where they knew they didn't have what they needed and they walked away. Okay? There are all kinds of mechanisms you can put in place. The county can get together, as they do in Wayne County, and they can provide a fund to help pay for the indigent. Sure. But you have that discussion about what that means, right? What does that mean? Does that mean that me in Northville, I have to pay for people who don't want to pay their taxes? No. it'd have to be people who are on hard times.
Sure.
Talk
Because
about-
there's a lot of walkaways still today.
and that doesn't take.
There's a swampland right down from my house. It's up for auction, tax foreclosure.
Right.
You can't hunt there. It's too close to residential homes, and you certainly can't build there.
Right, and
that's part of that number.
Right, and you get a lot of that. And that's okay.
Yep.
You know, like you get a stick of land somewhere out way out in the hinterlands, and you can't do anything with it. Okay, you know what? And you know who else doesn't want it? The township and the municipality. They don't want it either.
No,
they want to sell it immediately and put it back on the tax rolls and maybe get someone to live there. The Detroit Land Bank, for all its corruption, and it's got a lot of it, at least they're trying. They don't want to own a bunch of vacant houses and vacant lots in the city of Detroit.
That's the maintenance they're going to have to do, cutting the grass, anything.
They just let it go. The county.
They don't cut the grass?
No, not like the property I'm referencing down from my house on 9th Street.
Oh, no. Well, that's different. I'm talking about like in Detroit. I talk about the city here. I see them out there mowing the lawns all the time.
That's the biggest complaint. You're making us mow our lawns, but the city isn't mowing their lawns. So the city are hiring outside contractors to mow vacant lawns of foreclosed properties.
And they do not want to do it.
They do not. It'd be nice not to.
They'd sell it for $5 if they got the opportunity. They're happy to.
We've
right?
seen that.
And again,
for $1.
Right.
Yeah.
But
to a major corporation or something.
And when you're talking about who's making those decisions, who's going to be involved in those decisions about that relief, where do you want that decision made? Locally?
Not in Lansing.
Or Lansing.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, your neighbor who may care about you or your property, or Lansing, who you're just a number.
I'll go back to, even if you don't get along with them, even if you don't know them personally, your local municipality, your county commission, they are your neighbors. Us making those decisions is because it affects me like it affects my neighbors. Lansing's not your neighbor. Yes, my state rep lives several miles from me, okay? But she's one little voice up in Lansing. I'm a voice, an elected official, with 7 people. It's easier to get things done. And like I go back to, it's not as people want everything instantly. It's not going to be instantly. Let's elect the people that can get our arms around the issue that we're talking about today. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I mean, I like I said, I love the enthusiasm. I love the work they're putting into it. I wish we could incorporate those volunteers. I hope we can for 2026 to actually win elections. However,
it's important.
It starts at the top. Leadership starts at the top. You cannot put out a proposal that fails fundamental mathematics, that is poorly thought out, has bad strategy, and draws resources for other things, and not have people like you and me step up and say, this doesn't work.
How's come big corporations like Consumers Energy and Dan Gilbert didn't jump on Axe My Tax?
Right. They know it doesn't work either.
That's right. Because they're smart people. They have people that can run numbers and go, yeah, this ain't going to be good.
Yeah, that's right. And they're not going to drop. I mean,
I was on the Axe My Tax website before we jumped on today, and they listed their corporate sponsors: an antique store, a tire store, something else, or whatever. And great for them. Great for them. But guess what? That's not going to get a citizens initiative across the finish line.
And not close.
And even if you did it at a grassroots level and you started digging in, if the money from the big corporation doesn't follow it, or somehow you can tap into several $1 million, you're wasting everybody's time with a citizens initiative. I hate that, but it's the facts. People need to start looking at the reality, at the facts. Yes, you might not like it. It's like voting early. It's like banging heads with hardcore to the right Republicans. I always vote on election day. Okay, that's great. But proposal 2, put it in our Constitution, and the Democrats are using it against us. It's a strategy. You might not like it, but please embrace the strategy.
I mean, I don't like it that the Lions have had a terrible season, but that doesn't mean you're going to try to play along a set of rules that the other side's not playing. You're not going to say, well, I don't like the fact there are 3 timeouts, so I'm only going to use 2 of them. right?
Right.
That's not how it does work or how it should work. You play by the rules of the game. And right now the rules of the game are you have local control. You have far, far less control at the state level. If
Yeah.
you want to shrink down the size of your government, if you're a libertarian, where do you do that? You do that locally.
Carla talked this morning about how a lot of her volunteers are the Tea Party volunteer types and libertarian types. Let me tell you, they don't seem very libertarian to me. If you want to give control to Lansing and not keep it local, it's just talking points, and actually it's desperation at this point in time with the initiative. Matt, we got to probably end it there. I got some announcements to do, GOP related. I guess I will see you December 5th at the state committee meeting.
No, you'll actually hopefully see me. I'm going to give a little pitch. December the 3rd.
Okay.
December the 3rd, the Northville Republicans Club and Plymouth Canton Republicans Club.
That's right.
Remember,
I did sign up for that, didn't I?
You did. Thank you very much. It's going to be a great event. We have a great food sponsor. We have we're approaching half a dozen political speakers, and the venue's great. And I'll share you the link, and you can share it with your group.
Kevin will do that
because we have we do have a fair amount of people from out of our area that want to see these people, and it's great to see the candidates that we're going to have, which I think is a great crop of candidates. It's best that I've had it in my tenure as a Republican here. And we're going to be able to say, hey, we like this one for this reason, or like that one for that reason. So
Matt, since you are a leader of a Republican club, remind people, because I think this could hold you up with membership with some. You don't have to live in Plymouth or Canton to be a member, correct?
That is correct. That is correct. We have a couple differences. The biggest difference that we have is that we are a 501c4.
Right.
We are private. So our membership is private. Our lists are private. There's no worry, because back in the day, it's not as bad as it was, but back in the day, you'd have people who say, I agree with you, but I don't want the blowback. And now you can help out, you can participate. We did some amazing things. 2024, we did 7,000 calls in a phone bank. We probably had 33% live answers. We knocked on something like 3,000 doors. We sent out 60,000 voter guides. And you can do that through this mechanism. You guys have a very good active county party. We a little bit less so, but absolutely, if you live in the area or don't, and you want to participate in these kind of politics, we'd love to have you. Our last two matters were citizens only voting. We had a big presentation on that. We're an effort on that, and the bus tax we talked about locally.
Yeah. As a county chair, when the going gets tough, as a county chair, which it does, I've often thought, I could tap out and start my own gig or join a gig or help out somewhere else and get more things done faster. Spend the money where we can spend the money legally, where I can't with the GOP. It's on my mind a lot. Things are going good in Jackson right now. But like I said, when the going gets tough, sometimes I think about, why am I doing this? I love what I do. I love elections. I love being in the process and strategizing and think about it and working for candidates. But there's times when you're in a county GOP where you feel like you're contained. And I often think, when I look at guys like you and what Adam's doing in Washtenaw County and on and on and on, I think, well, maybe that's where it should be,
Yeah, no, I mean, look, how did you feel a year ago today? It felt amazing. It felt so amazing,
man.
And
like to remind me of that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we forget, all this bad news and this, that, all the things in the world, everything going. But man, a year ago today was amazing. And the second most amazing was, we were going to go out to, I don't remember, we were going to go out to inauguration. But remember, inauguration was going to be this like frozen cold disaster. So a bunch of us called it off and said, hey, we're not going to go because there's not going to be a parade or anything. And so we just threw together at the last minute, maybe with 2 days notice, like a watch party. And we probably had 20 people in my house. And it was the coolest. I mean, people were so ecstatic
Yeah,
to
they were.
watch this happen. And that can happen again. That can happen at your local level. We lost, for example, as Republicans, we lost 7 state house races by less than 3,000 votes, and we still have 59 people in the state house. We could have had 66,000 people if we got 66 people in the state house if we had 18,000 more strategically placed votes. We have all that coming back. We have state senate coming up. That,
Sure.
as you know, is a disaster with Gretchen Whitmer not even calling an election, so it's an empty seat for 9 months, right? And attorney general. Oh my God! For the first time,
Man.
we're going to have a non.
And we've had both attorney general candidates on our show.
Yeah, we have.
And Kevin and I like them both
Yeah,
a
both
lot.
of them.
Yeah,
I have
do.
a hard time.
I know where I'm leaning,
Me too.
but I like them both. They would both be great attorney generals.
Oh, and all 3 that are running for Secretary of State.
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable.
Great.
I really am torn on those 3. I have not made a decision.
We've had one. We're about to have another.
Yeah, we got Monica coming on December 1st. We've had Amanda on. And then I was just talking to Forlini in Monroe. We better get him on or he'll be pissed off. So
And look, we have these riches. I love it. And I would love to have some of those people who run for some of those seats and don't get it to pick another one.
Oh yeah.
Pick another one. Go, hey,
especially attorney general. I think it's one of the strongest groups of candidates for any position.
So what it is SOS and AG is to go to the generals chosen by the precinct delegates at what we call a nomination convention. And you hope that the precinct delegates pick the person that can win in the general. And I really think both AG candidates, either one of them that goes in the general, the Democrats have a contender. And I feel that way for the most part, not as high, but that way with those SOS candidates. I really do. I'm feeling good.
Well, yeah, and we have also the benefit of the complete meltdown of the Michigan Democratic Party, which I love. That they have 3 candidates for attorney general, and they hate each other, and they're going after each other, and they have 2 or 3 candidates for Secretary of State, and the lead candidate is a horribly flawed woman, and they're going after each other. They have that at the Senate, they have that at governor. It's delicious. And that Republicans, what does that mean? Can we be reasonably organized? Can we get people out? Can we get the people out who voted for Trump but don't normally otherwise vote? Can we get people out who maybe didn't necessarily think so much about Trump, but now that he's not on the ballot, maybe they're thinking, hey, I see some of these policies and I don't mind this so much.
Matt, I'll tell you what, I wanted these weeks coming up, I'd love to have you back on to talk about that I prefer to talk about campaigns. And going into 26, Kevin will tell you that is where we'll need 2 hours for the show.
It looks as if the chat feels the same way.
It's just where I am. I don't want to talk about a citizens initiative that isn't going to go anywhere.
Right.
I want to talk about 2026. Kevin knows, all my listeners know, get out of Russ's way when it comes to 2026. I am not messing around, man.
I got to tell you, I am the same way. We're already out recruiting candidates. I got one. I'm close. I really, really want this candidate to run, but that's what we're out doing. We're thinking about these things in advance.
Yeah.
Again, think about where we were in late 2021, early 2022, how bad it was.
I try to forget.
Now we've whipped things around because people see you can win in Michigan. Don't tell me Michigan can't win Republican races because X or Y or Z.
Well, when you look at the numbers, it's low propensity voters. And we proved in 2024, chasing the ballot, going after low propensity voters works. That challenge is in front of us even greater going into 2026 because midterms people really don't vote. But we know who to target and what to do to suggest to get their ballot in so their vote gets counted.
Amen.
Right. That's exactly right. Yep. And we got this great opportunity. It's new. This is a new thing. Democrats are going to have some very, very difficult conversations to have around their support of Duggan, where he draws his votes from. How does that impact down ballot races? and I don't see a solution to their problems. Maybe they have one that I can't figure out, but I will tell you, I was on a podcast as a Republican with a Democrat talking on the other side, and the Democrat said, without question, we view Mike Duggan as hurting us more than it hurts Republicans. So we are.
I like that optimism.
Yeah, I mean, he was afraid as all get out.
Democrats don't like to come on this show very often.
No, we invite them. They don't do it.
You know,
Carl won't come on either.
No,
I will say this: there are Republican shows that where people and I don't agree.
Yeah,
okay?
Of course.
And I have no problem going on there because I think we need to learn to have these conversations.
Yeah,
and we need to learn to say, you have a good heart and you're working hard, but your plan doesn't work. So let's replace the plan and leave you in place and get something done.
Something that discourages me a lot, Matt, is when they say, us Republicans, we don't circle the wagon enough. We fight too much, and we do this and we do that. And that's why we continue to lose elections. Number one, we don't lose elections. Look at 2024. And I'm somewhat familiar with the Jackson Democratic Party, and they've been a hot mess for many, many years. They have the same problems we do. And they don't bring them out in public, but for the most part, ours aren't in public either. No. We need to stop talking like that. We're going to have disagreements. Okay. And that's what we're supposed to do, is discuss those disagreements. But I don't like the negativity of, we need to stop fighting one another. Yap. Come on, Matt, you and I both went through the Caramo hoaxtra time. That was a horrible time.
That was a horrible time.
We fixed the problem.
Yeah, and it saying that doesn't mean what I think some of the people saying it thinks it means.
Yeah.
That does not mean that myself or other volunteers or clubs or groups or county parties are going to agree with a very, very flawed idea just because the author puts an R next to their name.
Yeah.
If you agree with everything everyone says, then you're just a sheep.
All right, we got to shut this down, Matt. I told you we'd do the hour and a half easy, so we got to shut it down. I got some announcements. Thank you so very much for coming on. I like the way you articulate what we're up against.
Yeah.
I've seen you present it before. I knew you were the person to bring that on, and we had great discussion. Thank you, Kevin, for being included in that discussion.
Gentlemen, anytime. Happy to at any time.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. All right, Kevin.
Well,
he was a better conversationalist than the last guest we had.
Yeah. Well, last guest we had, he was informative, but he wasn't very entertaining.
No, you don't have to pull conversation out of Matt Wilk.
No, absolutely not. That was no, and I think that it was very informational, and
we kept it together a little better than we normally do, because sometimes, I mean, we did get it in the weeds, but we did keep it kind of in there. I don't know if at the end of the day we solved any problems. I say that all the time.
No, absolutely not. I think that it's one of those situations where, just like I saw in the YouTube chat today, we're all saying the same thing in different ways.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's politics.
There's
a reason why debates or politics center
You know
around
what
debates.
sucks worse than government? Politics. It really does. Now, I enjoy politics.
And math.
Right.
That's pretty much what this is.
This is a math problem.
Is it politics and math?
The math doesn't match.
Yeah.
I hope that someone comes along. We got a great plan to eliminate property taxes. This is the way the math looks. We figured it out, like he talked about 2.0 with whatever they were dealing with in his neck of the woods.
Yeah.
We're in 2.0. Axe my tax, and it's the same damn questions we had the first time around.
Well, it's the same proposal minus some minuscule things, and I mean, I brought it up in the chat.
I'm hoping there's an answer to this,
and I'll say it again. Well, and the big thing is we just have to find a way. It really comes down to, okay, we could go with the Axe my tax plan if we want to completely give up a lot of things we have.
A lot of the conversation,
fire, police, snow removal.
Well,
all got to get cut.
People don't think. I was talking to your grandma about this, right? Grandma Patty. You don't even think about drains in your community. We
drains.
live in Michigan.
Yeah, you want to live in a swamp?
Drains are important, but guess what? You don't notice them because you drive over them. You didn't know there's a drain there. I didn't know there's a drain in front of my house until the tile broke. And,
oh yeah, that's a problem.
And Jackson Transportation's up there digging the damn sidewalk up, and there's a drain that runs down through there right in front of my house. I didn't know that. You take that for granted. Street lights. I just approved $4,000 in street lights in Leone Township. $4,000. Yeah, they're switching up.
Taken for granted.
That shit's got to get paid for, guys.
Well, you remember when I lived on the city and the water main broke that one winter?
Yep.
And
you were without water for a couple of weeks, weren't you?
Months.
Oh yeah.
And it was insane.
Well, that's government being broke.
Well, that was the city saying, "Oh, it's not our main. It's not our main. It's something with you." And then they put an out of order sign on the fire hydrant, and I wasn't very happy.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's beside the point. To boil it all down, it's just I think we are all in agreement that property taxes suck,
and they're out of control.
And yeah, absolutely. But are we going to put 100 kids in a classroom? Are we gonna plow our own roads?
And Kevin, I don't like. In this conversation, I stay away from the school end of it because schools drive me nuts with their millage requests.
Right. Oh yeah,
and I don't feel sorry for them. I should. Their revenue that they get per pupil goes up every year. Our kids get dumber. Every time you pass a millage, none of that goes to education.
Fourth graders can't read.
That's right. It goes to new playground equipment and this and that and all that. We need to get back to
DEI and shit.
DEI and shit. DEI policies at Jackson Public Schools and on
all public schools.
All public schools.
That's the problem.
It is ridiculous. We need to get our arms around it, but we cannot just cut it off.
Well, the thing is I come from a school that they didn't ask for a millage for a very long time.
No.
The superintendent at the time, Jimenez, had come up with, and I don't know all the details.
It was the first time I ever heard of a sinking
fund. I have no idea what that even is.
And now they're popular.
Yeah, and
it's if you need the money, it's there.
Yeah,
and
it got funded by non-tax-paying dollars.
In many school districts around the state, too many
Manchester
do not.
They built their school off that.
Too many do not. But we live in a school district that keeps it contained.
Yeah, they got
within reason.
Yeah,
but many do not.
They don't ask for much, and they have a lot of schools.
Look at Grass Lake Schools. Now, Grass Lake Schools is 20 years old now, but that Taj Mahal they built.
Yeah, but didn't their superintendent do something shady?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
That's why kids don't go there. By the way, the fastest growing school district for school of choice in Jackson County is Michigan Center Public Schools.
Oh yeah,
because it's a great place to go. The teachers must be good. We have old buildings that are well maintained, and we've done the appropriate. The only thing that sucks is drop off and pick up students.
Absolutely, it's really bad over there. And I just noticed in the chat, and when I bring this up, Lance says, used to be a dairy farmer, thousands of acres, blah, blah. County drains aren't a huge issue. They weren't a huge issue because they were taken care of with your tax dollars.
That's right. It's
anyway.
And streetlights aren't either. What's $4,000 in my township? Drop in the bucket. But guess what? When them streetlights go on, you hear let's cut property taxes for anybody over 65. They're the ones that use our services the most. They're the ones that will be the first one to call to save the streetlights out.
Yeah. Detroit, great example for streetlights. That it was a shithole for years. We'd go downtown, around the stadiums, everything.
Yeah.
Mike Illich paid for, I don't know, X amount, thousands of dollars of streetlights, light everything up. It's remotely safe to be, as long as you're in those contained areas. Yeah. But that's because Illich paid for the streetlights.
And we live in a community where there's a lot of roads and streets without streetlights.
Yeah.
We get it. We live in a mostly rural community.
But on the south side, there's streetlights.
But if you get into the populated area of say our township, the first person to complain because the streetlight's out, will be usually a senior.
Yeah.
Or anybody's going to complain. You're not seeing there's things that need to be paid for outside of public safety. What about our court system? Is Axe by tax? We spend $300,000 a year to maintain the court building.
Right. Yeah, and
I don't. That one never even came up today.
yeah. Oh
Is
yeah.
that
I mean,
included in the public safety wrap here?
you forget about
I'll bet you not one person from Axe Tax can answer the question.
that jailing of dangerous criminals.
I think that might fall. See, I think that might fall under. Don't sign it.
They fall under taxes, and at the end of the day,
Decline to sign.
yeah. The big thing is, if property taxes just get completely eliminated, we got to pay for that somehow. That means some other tax is going to go way up. Apparently, 15% sales tax.
They're going to try to cover it somewhere.
Terrible.
You're going to come out of pocket.
We just lost the camera feed.
All right, we're just.
Well, I guess that'll be it.
We're like a radio station.
Yeah. Our audio's on, but our camera feed is out.
Just real quick, under the Oak Speaker Series, December 11th, with Lance Griffin from
No.
10X Votes. He will tell us how we're going to win elections. December 11th, right here at the Jackson GOP headquarters at 6 o'clock, like they always are. $12 gives you a great speaker on how we're going to win elections, and pizza and a beverage. JacksonGOP.org to reserve your spot. We might sell out, right, Kevin? 435 people.
I mean, we could give it a shot.
No, I doubt it.
Hold on 1 second before.
All right, sweet.
There we go.
Sweet.
Sorry, guys.
And then we have what we're going to call a candidate forum, January 17th at the Jackson GOP headquarters. And what this is all the candidates for Secretary of State and Attorney General will be here for a mini debate. It's going to be more of a forum, questions. And, we open the doors of that at 10 in the morning, and the event starts at 11. And it should be a good time. We're doing that prior to the state convention for precinct delegates and whoever else wants to come and get to know the candidates in a forum setting and on a one-on-one. We'll give you an hour in or more to talk one-on-one with the candidates. That's January 17th, and it's like $5 if you're a Jackson County precinct delegate. If you're an outside of Jackson County precinct delegate, it's only 10. Yeah. And the old ladies are going to have donuts and coffee and make some soup, Kevin.
Soup,
homemade soup.
I love soup.
I'll bet you Judy makes a good homemade soup.
I'm betting she makes a lot of.
I mean, come on. $5 for some soup.
I love soup.
Anyways, I hope there's lots of crackers. I like a lot of crackers.
I'll bring my own crackers.
And I'm sure Karen's going to make a hell of a soup. They're going to make a good soup. Come for the soup. I'll tell you who to vote for. But come for the soup.
Yeah, the soup. That's more important than anything.
And something I meant to say in the beginning of the stream, and I haven't said it in a while, this is not a Jackson GOP podcast.
Right.
It is a Russ and Kevin podcast.
Yes.
It's only the opinions of you and I. Does not reflect on the Jackson GOP. Guess what? You can sign the Axe My Tax petition right here at the Jackson GOP headquarters. Right here. And that was decided by me.
Yeah. Well,
it wasn't our executive committee. I called our guy up, get us some petitions. So listen, I'm not the asshole everybody thinks there is. Another quick story at the fair. Remember the fair?
Yeah.
When those Axe My Tax people wanted to take over our fair booth that we paid $700 for.
And then they stomped their feet and took all the petitions.
When I set the rules where I was like, no, that's not going to happen.
Right.
We did allow them space. And one of their members sat there most days, and we allowed them to collect signatures, and we did not bother them. Yeah. So we're supportive of the volunteer efforts. I am.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't think anyone's disputing that.
But I will say, only a couple of times I've been up the GOP office, and someone comes up to sign the Axe My Tax petition. Oh, and if I'm nearby, I'm usually telling them, yeah, I'll let you sign, but you're going to hear me out.
Well, you're a millionaire.
That's right.
Carlos said so.
Not only a millionaire, Kevin, I am a Kevin Rankin millionaire.
Yeah, Kevin Rankin.
Listen, we know a lot of millionaires. I live in a neighborhood with millionaires.
Yeah.
You can say I'm a millionaire, right? Oh. Retirements, properties, whatever, motorhome, whatever makes you a millionaire.
Yeah.
Kevin Rankin millionaire is a different level than that millionaire.
Yeah, that's a whole different level.
I'm a millionaire at his level.
Oh, man. Which, I guess I can't wait for you to die.
I'm trying my best to spend every dollar before
I would.
before the children get a hold of it.
Yeah, reverse mortgage your house and buy an RV and all that stuff. I would.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm considering a reverse mortgage on my home, but I'm a millionaire. I'll just let everybody know, between me and my wife, we make $75K a year. Okay. Which,
nice.
we're empty nesters. Okay. Yeah, that's not a lot of money. We live in Jackson. That's pretty darn good, really.
Yeah, you're not doing terrible.
I'm a $75,000 a year guy. All right. So I'm nowhere near a millionaire, like Carla says. I do have a couple of nice suit jackets that I wear.
Yeah.
So maybe
but you
that's
got them off of Amazon.
That's right. Maybe that's where they get the impression, that I'm such a good looking guy and everything.
Yeah, that's probably it.
And how old's my car? 10 years old?
Yeah, probably.
Got a hubcap falling off?
I drive a nicer car than you, and I technically
don't.
I don't make $75K a year.
Yeah. So anyways, let's wrap this up. It's late. I'm supposed to go grocery shopping.
Oh, shit. Guys, make sure you like the stream, follow the channel, follow us on Facebook.
Thanks, guys.
I did put the link in the chat, and I'll put it in the description as well for the event. Yeah, that's the word. The event that Matt had talked about. So,
and then I'm a YouTube clip cutter now.
Oh yeah. I see you're doing other shows and stuff.
Well,
you think that you're a pro.
Our buddy John Wilson.
Yeah.
I want to strangle him sometimes, but it's John Wilson.
Technically, he's my boss.
He's a good guy. And so I did some clips for that. And so anyways, in the next couple of days, I'll take some clips from this show and throw them on the Facebook. Yeah. By the way, we have a Facebook page. I'd like to grow that.
Yeah, let's pump that up. Facebook. Did we
just go to?
It's
stick the plan.
It's in the description.
You just type in the search bar, stick to the plan podcast.
Yeah, but don't put podcast because it won't. No, you'll get a page, but it's not the right one.
Wrong page. Podcast. It'll pop right up. Say follow. Boom. You get everything we need.
Absolutely.
All right, man. We're out.
All right. Yeah, we're out of here. You guys, everyone have a great one.
Vote for Lance/Will.
Welcome to the Stick to the Plan podcast. Michigan's elite political podcast is about to begin, live from the birthplace of the Republican Party.